IPOB,
one family.
IPOB,
One family.
IPOB,
One family.
one family, one family.
IPOB.
All hail,
Biafra.
all hail,
Biafra.
Biafra. Interesting. Yes, we gotta get going. And before I start formally, I would like to introduce myself. I will be the chief talkative tonight. Okay? I'll be the chief talkative. In other words, MC. Right? And my name is DJ. My name is Ignatius Soronadi, also known as Eagle Biafra. You know, before the first Kriju War, I was known as a Bush dog back in the days. So, for me to start, we have our VIPs, and first of all, anything we're doing is what doing well. Let me start from, we have a guest here tonight, and then we're on the move to put Biafra in the world map.
Sir.
Like we've been trampled upon, swept under carpet. But there's one poem that I read back in the days when I lived, I didn't go to school, please, but I lived on School Road. You need to know that. So there's this Mazisi Kunene from South Africa. He wrote about the soldier hero. The soldier hero, he went killing his subjects, killing them, murdering them, and burying them. And when he's buried them, he'll be dancing over their grave and rejoicing. You know, dancing all that Chakrabati dance. And he thought everything is done because he buried them. Everything is done, everything is sealed and all that. But when you look at the grave in the forest or anywhere, after some time you see the grasses shooting up. That is the hidden truth that's coming up. So Biafra has been the people that are flexing muzzle over our head, think that everything is being sealed. All Biafra is a done deal. But we are the youth of Biafra. We are springing up today. So let's put Biafra in the world map. We have in our midst, you know, this is a great country. They do their things in apple pie order. They put things right. So we're going to follow them. We have in our midst somebody from a VIP from the United States Census Commission. So I'm not going to do much. I'm going to let her speak. I call upon you, madam.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here. So thank you for giving me this time to explain the importance of the U.S. Census, which is coming in 2020, and how that's going to benefit everyone in this room and the people, the Biafran people. I'm sorry. So I have a slide presentation. I'm going to go through it. It's going to be really quick. I'm not really going to speak to the slide, but I want to speak to everyone in the room. The U.S. Census, it comes around every 10 years. So it's something that's mandated by the Constitution. Every 10 years, we count the population of the United States. So everyone that's in the United States at the time of the census, that's who we count at that moment. So the reason why we do the census, and there's a couple reasons. One that's kind of particular to me is, so there's $675 billion that is distributed to every single state every 10 years. And they get that data, the amount of money they distribute to the states is determined by the census data. So for instance, I'm from Chicago, South Side Chicago, and we never filled out the census data because we didn't trust the government. We had everybody living with us. We didn't want the government to know who was living in our houses. So we didn't fill it out. We never did. But what happens is that the money that came to that state didn't come down to those communities because we did not fill out the census data. We didn't fill out the surveys. And so a lot of those communities where I grew up, they're devastated because we didn't get funding. Every 10 years, we never filled it out, and so we never get funding. So if there's an area, maybe there's we report, oh, there's 10,000 people in this area. Well, maybe there's actually 50,000, but they only get funding for the 10,000 because we don't fill out the census survey. So that's why it's important. And that's why I'm here to talk about that. And it also determines how many representatives we have in the House of Representatives. So if we don't count, regardless of what state we live in, I know there's individuals from Massachusetts here, New York, Maryland. DC is a little different, right? But we don't represent ourselves, then we're not represented where we need to be. Okay, so that's another reason. So I know it's a little hard to see, but like I said, I'm gonna go through this. I will make sure that Mr. Joel has a copy of this, so everyone in the room will be able to get a copy of the slide here. Okay. So like I said, it's all right. I'm not gonna go through. So it comes around every 10 years. March 12th is when they're going to start counting. So March 12th, they'll send out, I just want to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. March 12th, we're going to send out a little postcard to everyone's house. And it's going to say, you are now welcome to fill out the census survey. There will be an identifiable number that identifies the house, the resident where you live. And it'll ask you to fill out the census survey for everyone that lives in the house. So if you open the mail and you fill it out and you get it, it's for everyone that lives in the house. You'll be able to fill out the survey online. You can call in and fill it out. There's 24 different languages in which you can, which they'll help individuals fill out the survey in on the phone. If you don't fill it out on the phone, after 5 attempts to get you to fill it out online or the phone, they'll send you a paper survey, okay? And then if you don't fill it out then, they may send someone out to your home. So let's talk about that a little bit. I have talked to people and they say, well, I want to be identified where I'm from. Yes? So if you go online and you fill out the census survey, you can self-identify your nationality. But you can't do that on the paper survey because it's limited. Right? So a lot of times you fill out forms and it'll say black, African American, white, Hispanic, Asian, and it's very limited in your choices. But if you self-identify, if you self-respond and go online, there's a blank spot for you to self-identify. So that's something that you want to keep in mind and also share with your friends and your family and your community. How do I self-identify? How do I put that I'm Biafran on there? That's how you do it. If you wait, you may not get that chance to because they just don't give the options. Okay? So that's one of the important things I want to talk about is self-identifying on the census survey. So the first thing is in January, you'll start to hear a lot of information about the census on radio, on television. You can see it on buses and billboards and everything. So be cognizant of that. Be aware of it. And have a talk with yourself about, are you going to fill out the census survey or not? And I'm asking you to because it's important. We have to start realizing that we count in this country, all of us. And if we want to do that, that's one of the ways. It's a civic duty. And a lot of times, like I said, we didn't do it. Not in my family. We did not fill out that form. Nobody. So it's different now. We have a responsibility to take care of our own families now, in our own neighborhoods, in our own communities. Right? So I'm going to fast forward to confidentiality and the information that we put on the census survey, and is that information confidential? And the fears that people have about filling out the census survey, and the noise we heard and the narrative and all the chatter we heard on the political side about the survey, and the census survey and the immigration question, whether they're going to put the question on there or not. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. the information that individuals put on the census survey is protected by Title 9. So if I or anyone I work with share any information, any personal identified information, you can go to jail for 5 years, $25,000 fine. Okay, so I'm not going to jail. I don't want to go to jail, and neither do anyone I work with. So the information is confidential. It's protected. There was a time that it wasn't protected. So back in the 1940s, another part of the United States government got some census data from the Census Bureau, and that led to the Japanese internment camps. So after that, we don't share that information with anybody anymore. And so I want to talk about that, though, in the real sense. What does that really mean? We had a lot of conversations with the Hispanic community about the immigration question when they were trying to decide if they were going to put that on the survey or not. So here's the deal. If you have children, if you've ever been to a hospital, if you have applied for a loan or applied to live in an apartment building, if you own your home and you filled out that paperwork, your information is out there anyways. The census survey, there's 10 questions. It's very limited. It asks your name, your birthday, your address, how many people live in the house with you, what's your race, ethnic background. 10 questions. It doesn't ask anything about where you're from, anything like that. So when people start to say, well, I'm fearful, and I'm fearful for the immigration issue, that's why I don't want to fill out the census survey, your information is already out there with agencies that are where their information is not protected. We've already shared everything. I mean, if you're on Facebook, believe me, you have shared more information than we will ever ask. So be careful about being fearful. The fear that, I'm trying to not say too much because I do represent the federal government. But here's the deal. Sometimes people put fear in our hearts, so we don't do stuff. So we don't fill out the census survey. I think we need to be careful about that. I think we need to look at it a little differently and not fear it. Recognize where that fear is coming from. Why are we afraid to fill out the census survey? Because we think something's going to happen. Doesn't work like that. Maybe they want us to be afraid. Because what happens? If we don't fill out the census survey, we don't get funding. If we don't get funding, we lose our power. We lose our standing in our community. That's right. That funding affects education. It affects the schools, the clinics, the community centers, Department of Transportation. It affects SNAP. It affects all of that stuff. So we lose our power in our communities when we don't fill out the census survey. Okay, and that's like that's really one of the messages I want you guys to take back to your friends and your families and your communities when they say, "Oh, why is it important? It doesn't matter." It's huge. It matters big time. Okay, I want to make sure I don't miss any points, any key points, but I also want to make sure that I give you guys a chance to ask questions. So, a couple of things I want to make sure you take back. The census, it's every 10 years. Sometimes you'll see what's called an American Community Survey. And there's a whole bunch of questions. So some people say, oh, I did the census last year. That's a different survey, okay? But the one coming in 2020 is the big one, okay? It's safe, it's confidential. We do not share that information with anybody, any other federal agencies. It's easy. It's only 10 questions on the census survey. If you go to the census website, you can actually pull up the questions that's going to be on there. Okay? And it's important. It's safe, it's easy, it's important. Okay, and it's our civic duty to our children and our communities. So with that said, Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Because I want to make sure I answer any questions.
All right. You said the forms will be out in March next year. March.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
March. So what happens, what it's going to look like, March 12th, we will start to mail postcards to individual houses. So we sent out individuals to check every single household in the United States. We work with counties and states to see how many houses are in this area or that area. Then we're going to go back and send a mailer to every single household. We have to take into consideration people that live in boats, people that live in RVs, homeless people, people that live in senior citizen communities and things like that. So with taking that into consideration, we send out a postcard to every single household, and we ask you to first fill it out online.
Is there any spots where people are required to fill the country?
I'm sorry?
Any spot where one is required to fill one's country?
Country of origin.
Country of origin. Is there any spot like that in the form?
Country of origin? We can pull that up. No, they don't. No. But it will ask for your ethnic background and your race. Yes, it does.
The ethnic background.
Doesn't ask if you're a citizen or not.
Yeah.
So the ethnic background is not your country of origin?
No.
It's black and all this stuff.
Black, Caucasian, Asian, Filipino.
And the upper.
Right. So we can pull up.
Question.
Sure. I'm sorry, ma'am. We can pull up the questions tonight if you want to see what's on there, just to let you know, so you can have. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm alluding to the question he asked. How will the U.S. Census say Biafrans, how will the U.S. Census determine the population or percent of Biafrans that were counted if they don't indicate on the form somewhere that they are Biafrans?
So when they ask you for when they ask race, you can self-identify where you're from. Biafra? Jamaican? Japanese? That's where you self-identify. But if you wait until the form comes to your house, like if you don't do that online, you cannot self-identify. You have to do the self-identifying option is online.
Right now.
March 12th.
From March 12th.
Yes, sir. From March 12th. Right.
Because you mentioned January. I know
Did I
what you said
mention? If
about
I mentioned January, I made a mistake. And also, I'm sorry. In January, I see.
Talk more about it.
In January, we'll start the marketing campaign. That's when you will start to see commercials on TV, and you'll see billboards, and you'll see them on buses, and it'll say, "Okay, 2020 census is coming. Have you filled? Are you going to fill it?" You'll start to see the marketing campaign in January. But March 12th is when we start to mail out the mailers. You may not get the mailer on March 12th. That's when we start. Yes. And so you ask yourself, what can you do? Like an individual in this room, what can you do to get your community together to fill out the census survey? Maybe go to your local library and say, listen, I'm part of this community, and I want to hold an event here at the library where maybe they don't have access to computers, or they don't have access to computers, they don't have access to Wi-Fi or something like that. Maybe the library will help you out. We are working with the American Library Association to open up all the libraries during the census time so people can go in there and fill out the census survey. So people will be able to fill out the census survey from March 12th to the end of, I believe, October, and that date might change. It depends on how many people don't respond. So as we get the forms in, we start counting. We only count aggregate numbers. So at the end, when we count everybody, and we look and see who did not respond, And by December 31st, we have to report the numbers to the president. We report numbers only, aggregate numbers. No self-identifying information, no names, no addresses, nothing like that. Numbers only. Okay? Yes, sir.
Is there any verification mechanism for you to verify that data? I'm saying that is there any verification process to kind of validate the information that's provided for you, or did you just take it verbatim, in good faith that information is accurate?
Right. It's taken good faith. Wow. So we don't verify self-check. The only thing we check is for duplications. That's what we check for, duplications. But we won't check to see if you put the correct last name or the correct birthday or anything like that, because you get into self-identifiable information. Now we're sharing and checking your identifiable information, and that's not what we do. We count the population, how many people are here on this day. That's what we don't. We check for duplications, and that's about it.
Yes, excuse me.
The lady first,
okay.
Please. Okay, sorry. Yes,
ma'am. What if a person, the Biafran that is not a citizen of the United States of America,
right.
It's illegal, and living in a shelter,
right?
And can they be counted in the U.S. Census?
Absolutely. We count everybody. We count everyone living in the United States. So April 1st is Census Day. So we run from March all the way out to July, October-ish. And I say July, October because that's when we start to look for the people that didn't respond. So it changes. So we count everyone. We count people who are not supposedly legal in the United States. We count people who are on visas. We count foreign exchange students. We count people that work in embassies, visitors, everyone that's living here when we start to count. So let's talk about college students. Some of us have college students. They go to college over there, but we still pay for their stuff here, right? So they count where they live most of the year. And we have cousins and family members. Sometimes they live over there. They live with us part of the year. They live somewhere else part of the year. You count where they live most of the time. That's the answer. Most of the time. Okay. So
it would have been a follow-up to what she asked.
Yes.
Because many people are still afraid.
Yes.
And they are not convinced that these will expose them to immigration.
Right.
By making specific your identity.
Yes.
You get it?
Yes, sir.
So it will tell on the census number, but at the same time, how will it affect them as individuals?
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a good question. How would so he's saying some people still don't trust it, right? It's like, yeah, I'm still not feeling that. I don't care. That's so. What we look for are people in the community that understand and do trust it. So you guys are trusted voices. So I can't go into certain communities and say, listen, you need to fill out the Census Bureau because of this. I work for the federal government. A lot of people think I work, they look at me, they're like, I don't trust you. I get it. But they trust you. They trust you and they trust you. They trust you. And so so my job is to explain and educate you, individuals in this room, so you can go out and educate and explain this to other people in your community, the people that don't trust.
Okay.
I understand that the fear. I know some people that's been deported. Right? They didn't have anything to do with the census. They didn't fill out the Census Bureau. They didn't fill out the census survey.
Okay.
They were deported on some other stuff.
Okay.
So the information that can cause a person that fear, that information's already out there. What I really want to do, and I don't want to take up a lot of time, if somebody on their phone can pull up US Census, uscensus.gov.
Just have one question.
Yes.
I mean, essentially, I think the question is, do you share information with immigration?
Do we share information with immigration? We do not share information with immigration or any other federal agency. We do not. We can't. We did it in the 1940s, and that didn't go well. So we don't do that anymore. As a matter of fact, there was a president that wanted some information on his neighbors because he moved to D.C. and he lived in D.C. He wanted to know who he was living next to, and we didn't give it to him either. We do not share that information with anybody. So can someone pull up uscensus.gov?
See the kind of questions.
Yeah, as we, sure. Because what I want to do is I want you guys to see what questions are on there. Yes.
A follow-up again. I am from Jolina Broadcasting Service. Are we free to make this public, this meeting?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I get a copy?
Yeah, I will do that.
Excuse me. Can I say something?
Yes, sir. Just one second.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for the interest of us here, Biafrans, I think our take home is all Biafrans go home must fill online. Yes. That's where you have a chance to say Biafra. Yes. That's what our main concern. That's our main concern. So go home and make sure it's online. That's where you have the opportunity to feel Biafra.
And evangelize.
And I've been here for, I'm in Chicago, by the way.
Okay.
And new mayor of Washington, Winfred, Obama, at Harding Park, and others. I went to the Point University up to PhD. So I'm in Chicago for 28 years. So what I'm trying to say is, this is our take home.
Can I see your
face? Go online. Tell everybody when you go home, get your handle here, WhatsApp, Biafran Census, March 12th is the start. Go online. Everybody, Biafra. All the children, even the ones who are yet to born, all the children, Biafra. That's what
Not yet to born.
So want to on camera. I mean, we know what to do. We know what to do. I just want to emphasize what our point is. Our main take home. You said 5 attempts. Everything else. Yeah, that's our main.
Right. I'm going to clarify this. I'm sorry. I'm going to clarify. So I'm going to clarify how many times we attempt to count the individuals and reach out. So we will send out a total of 5 postcards that will ask you to go online, or you can call. So some people are not able to go online. They can call in. After that 5th, after the 5th attempt is when we will start to say, okay, now we do, it's called a non-response follow-up, meaning we didn't get a response from this particular address. And so we will send someone out. And they'll say, hello, sir or ma'am, we see you didn't respond to your census survey. Can I help you respond?
Miss, I think we've got what we
want.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Is there any vital thing that we have to hear? And if not,
right.
I think we're fine.
I will share. I will share information with Mr. Joel.
Yes, out there.
And I just ask that you ensure you talk to your friends and your family about the 2020 census survey. It's so important for individuals that if you want to count and you want to self-identify, go online. But first we got to, and the first thing we have to do is convince people to fill it out. Is to complete it, yes? It's the first thing we have to do. And once we convince everyone, yes, we have to complete this, make sure they do it online. It's the best way and it's the only way. So a couple people in here have the census.gov website up. Like the man back, the young lady back here, she has it up, and you have it up. If you when you type in, if you go to search and you type in Census Survey 2020, the questions will come up. So if anyone asks you, I think it's important to know what, to be able to show, this is what they're going to ask. Just search 2020 Census Survey and the questions will come up. Okay? So I know you all have a program tonight, and you're honoring your elders, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And
one more thing, can we still get your name and the identity?
Absolutely. I can give it. It's long, but Mr. Joel has it, but it's Sonya, S-O-N-Y-A.
Just pronounce it.
Sonya Harris Ladovich.